So, hi everyone. Welcome to the biannual webinar for care drop-off sites. I am Jared. I'm a senior associate with the California Carpet Stewardship Program. I mainly work in Southern California, up into Central California, but I also help manage hauling and operations throughout the state. Many of you know Lisa Meckes. She is focused in Central and Northern California as well. Sort of my counterpart up in the northern part. And we both want to thank you all for attending. I know you're all busy, you have many other things going on, so I'll get right into it. But before I do, I will remind you the mute and chat buttons. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking, just so we don't hear, the background noise. But that being said, please really feel free to unmute yourself, ask any questions. You can interrupt me. I just, like to keep it fairly informal. And also, if you don't feel like speaking, you can just type directly into the chat. We'll have definitely openings for questions and feedback, but if you have any questions in between those times, just feel free to speak up. And also, please note this webinar is being recorded, so we can post it on the CARE website after the fact. And with that, I will get into the agenda. I'll just quickly go over this. We'll start with a CARE program update, which will consist of a collections review for 2025 year to date, as we typically do on these webinars. Then we'll look at the CARE outreach team and general CARE outreach and how that can help your facility or your retail location. We'll have a guest presentation from Carl Muth of MSW Consultants. So thank you, Carl, for joining. And he'll go over the recent CARE waste characterization study, or PCC residue study. And then we will go over some check-in items, a few reminders, and that will hopefully be helpful to you before we talk about our regular kind of feedback, best practices, and see if there's any questions before we close. So I'll jump right into the CARE program update. We have 174 drop-off sites. Oh, I am not advancing the slides. There we go. 174 care drop-off sites serving all 58 counties. And this year so far, we've added 19 already, which is quite a bit. In 2024, we added 16 for the whole year. And so far, approximately halfway through the year, a little more, we've added 19. We're on track to reach our annual convenient collection goal of one public drop-off site per 425,000 people in each county. And that's in addition to the requirement that CARE maintains at least one public drop-off site per county as well. And as always, you can visit the CARE drop-off site map at carpetrecovery.org/California/CA. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit as a little bit of a reminder. Okay, moving on. These are the 19 new sites. I'm not going to name them all on the call here, but these are the 19 sites that have adopted the program in 2025 so far, and we still have more to come, which is great. So welcome and thank you for participating in the CARE drop-off site program. Obviously, all of you that were here before that, we thank you as well. I'll just leave this up on screen for just a few moments to give folks a chance to view each site. All right. So we'll look at a few collections figures here. This slide shows the increase in drop-off sites over time. We ended 2024 with 163 sites, and year to date, we now have 174, like I mentioned. I know I said that 19 have been established this year, so the reason you see the jump from 163 plus 11 to 174 is because some locations did have to exit the program, mainly due to things like retail locations having landlord issues, or there were site relocations that they then had no space for a container, things like that. Overall, though, we've been extremely impressed with site retention and the longevity with which many of you have been participating in this program, which is great. In general, we're certainly seeing a significant upward trend of drop-off sites each year, and we will continue onward. If I know I usually mention this, but if any of you have affiliate locations or know of a waste or recycling or C&D facility that would like to participate in the carpet recycling program, or even a large volume carpet generator like a retail location that isn't already recycling, please let us know. I know I've said this in the past, but I think it's an important reminder. Any of you, or sorry, I should say anything we can do to expand to willing and engaged participants is great, and it really helps the program, and it's helped in the past. So thank you for that. Now this chart shows total pounds of carpet collected by CARE drop-off sites by all of you. You can see we've collected approximately 10 million pounds of carpet so far this year, and that's just through the end of June, so through Q2. Considering Q1 is usually slower in terms of collection volume, and Q3 is typically much busier, we expect to exceed last year's collection rate of 21.5 million pounds. And that 10 million pounds is 5,000 tons. Pretty simple math, but to put it in perspective, it's approximately 250 full 53-foot trailers worth of carpet. So that's no small amount, and the carpet would have otherwise gone to landfill. So thank you very, very much. Nice work, everyone. And we always talk about the material that comes from public CARE drop-off sites, but I wanted to give you all a perspective on what else happens throughout the state in terms of collection. I know this is a busy slide, but that blue bar is the total pounds collected by public drop-off sites, so all of you. And the green bar shows the total pounds collected by the private network. And these are typically private on-site accounts at large generators of post-consumer carpet, so large carpet retailers, warehouses, and that is where the carpet recyclers essentially negotiate rates for private pickup service, and much like other commodities. And as you can see, CARE drop-off sites hover at about 1/4 of the total pounds collected in the state, but that percentage has certainly been going up in recent years. You can see in 2021, at least Q2, Q3, we were hovering around 16, 18%. Now we are at 27, 28%, so it is going up. So yeah, there's a vast network of private collection also occurring in addition to the public collection. And this is just Q1 2025 shown here up until that point. And then that all feeds into the statewide recycling rate. That's both public and private pounds collected. And the 2025 recycling rate target is 37%. That was actually exceeded in 2024. I mean, of course, we're still held to that now in 2025. In 2025 year to date, we're at approximately 43%. That's for Q1, I believe. So please keep in mind, it takes a long time for this data to come in and be processed. And of course, we'll have to assess the recycling rate for all of 2025 annually, but that sort of snapshot in time rate of the Q1 rate of 43% is a good indicator of which way we're moving. And in general, it's something that CARE is very proud of, and we honestly could not do this without all of you. So thank you. Oh, and sorry, I had forgotten to switch the slide again. So here's that slide I was referring to. My apologies. 43%. You can see Q1 2025. Okay, moving on. I wanted to tell everyone about our outreach team. Before I do, I will take a quick pause and see if there are any questions about any of the information I had just gone through. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, feel free to unmute yourself if you do, or use the chat, and I will move on. I wanted to tell you all about our outreach team. I think many of you are familiar in general with the fact that CARE does outreach. We'd do both in-person tablings and telephone outreach. The telephone outreach is occurring essentially constantly, kind of cycling through counties. This is done to carpet retailers in proximity to, one or more care drop-off sites. And we sort of, like I said, cycle through the state by county. We also prioritize outreach in regions where a new site has recently come online after they've been onboarded. This is to make them aware that there are carpet recycling options in their area and to check in on their general knowledge that carpet is recyclable. And we also offer various print collateral to promote the California Carpet Stewardship Program. And that includes things like installer sheets, bilingual handouts, signage and maps and things like that. I wanted to highlight specifically the outreach team's in-person tablings. So the main goal here is to educate and reduce contamination. We typically hold these at retail locations, but would be open to do them elsewhere if it makes sense. Specifically, locations that receive an especially large amount of post-consumer carpet for recycling. It's important for all locations in general to have this outreach, but retail locations in particular, they have the added consideration of not being a permitted solid waste facility. So therefore, it's extremely important to ensure that the carpet and carpet padding only get put into the care container and that no other trash and debris is left on the ground. So the main goals of this outreach are, like I said, education, reducing contamination, and that means both in the container itself and on the ground surrounding the container. They'll typically bring coffee, maybe some snacks. They'll hand out print materials and flyers and try to engage with people that are coming to drop off carpet. And they also try to talk with other installers and customers that may not be dropping off carpet, but we just want to make them aware that the carpet recycling option is there for them. And it's hard to gauge, as with any kind of marketing, education, and outreach, it's hard to gauge direct results in terms of the number of pounds as a result of this. There are many fluctuations in volume for many reasons, but qualitatively, I would say very certainly it's increased the overall volume when we've done this, and it's really changed the awareness and brought more people to these locations. And like I said, the increased cleanliness is a huge issue, especially for the retail sites. And we are also in the process of creating new signage to address keeping drop-off zones kind of clean, free of debris. In general, though, if you have, or if you need new signage, always please check in with us. But we'll be reaching out in the near future to those of you that may want those updated signs. So whether you're a retailer or a solid waste facility or recycling facility, if this type of outreach seems like it would be beneficial to you, please reach out to someone from CARE and let us know, and we can arrange that with you. And now I will turn it over to Carl of MSW Consultants, who will talk about the recent CARE post-consumer carpet residue study. We also refer to that as the waste characterization study. And in general, it goes over of the stuff that's collected, and of course Carl will talk about this, but I just wanted to mention of the material that's collected, the stuff that doesn't get recycled or the recyclers cannot recycle. What is that, and how do we identify what the problem materials are so that we can get it out of the waste stream? And I will leave it to Carl to talk about it a little bit more eloquently than that. Carl, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Thank you so much, CARE, for giving me the chance to share this. We thought this was a very cool study, and we're very excited to talk about it. Like Jared said, there's CARE's always interested in improving the recyclability of post-consumer carpet in the state of California, and this is something they've been, I guess, looking at for quite a while, and we finally got the opportunity to collaborate with them on this project, and we're very excited to share everything that we're putting together. We have a final report that we're going to be submitting to CARE very, very shortly. We're just finalizing a couple little numbers, answering a couple more questions, but that's going to be in CARE's hands very shortly. We just jump on into it, Jared. So a little bit about MSW Consultants first. We're primarily a management consulting firm, but we have a considerable amount of experience in this custom material characterization research work. Historically, this really means your refuse, your recycling. There's a lot of demand these days for C&D characterization and that sort of stuff. We work with MRFs on residue analyses, baled materials, some mixed materials feedstocks, and all sorts of kind of niche recyclable streams. We do this work for private companies, haulers, facilities, private public sector, when you're talking about cities, counties, statewide agencies. We've sorted waste on cruise ships and military bases and high-rise buildings and just about anywhere you can imagine. So it's very exciting to be able to get into this sort of stuff. And I have a bit of a soft spot in my heart for these more niche recyclable streams. So getting to learn a little bit more about carpet recycling was a very fun thing. We can jump into the next slide, and then we can talk a little bit about like what is this PCC residue. So we're defining this as all inbound material that is rejected from the PCC recyclers and sent to landfill. Basically, anything that arrives at the recycler's front door that they're not able to process and turn around into a commodity. Next slide. So our primary objective here was to determine the composition of the PCC residue, and from there be able to figure out what we might be able to do with it. Some additional considerations are why is the PCC material being disposed in the first place, and something we also wanted to see if we could figure out in this process was this question of mixed materials kept coming up in our early conversations with the recyclers. There is some nervousness on their end about seeing some contamination in their products after processing with unacceptable amounts of, say PET in their streams, and they're worried this is going to continue. So we were interested in maybe seeing what we can learn about this as well. Next slide. So our study approach at a high level is very similar to what we might do out at a landfill or out at a MRF. We need to develop a material categories list, coordinate with our recyclers or any facility to be able to accumulate material to sort through. We perform a weight-based measurement of the accumulated material, and then we run the numbers that we collect from that waste-based or weight-based measurement and package it up into a lovely report. And then we'll get into the material categories here on the next slide. When we're talking residues, we figured we wanted to split these into three main baskets. We have our targeted PCC, so the stuff the recyclers really generally do want for their process, but for some reason it's being rejected at that point. So this is our residential PCC, our commercial broadloom, and by the way, so we're using residential and just as a stand-in for cut pile. Commercial broadloom is our continuous loop. So if you see that, that's what that means. And then we've also got our tile. These targeted PCC categories also went another kind of layer down with this investigation into trying to figure out what might be the reason that they got discarded and not processed in the first place. In this gray box, you see we have our excessive adhesive, unacceptable backing type, mixed fiber, soaked soil, PVC contamination, or an undetermined basket for our basis of disposal. The remaining categories we have here are our non-targeted PCC. These are our natural fiber carpets, our wool, our jute. We also have our carpet scraps in here that are just too small to go through the normal process. And then we've got our non-carpet materials, or just everything else that is not carpet. So flooring related stuff, and then anything else you might be able to imagine that could end up in there. Next slide. And Jared, we got a bunch of photos here. We can jump through these pretty quick. I think these are just kind of a couple examples. These are some of our basis for disposal categories. So our unacceptable backings. Found a lot of felt back stuff, for example, soaked and soiled. If you've got a lot of motor oil or a lot of dirt or grime on here, that might be a reason why the recycler staff are rejecting these. Here's some of our wool photos. Bunch of jute that we found. Our carpet scraps. And then I think after this, we just got a couple more photos of just sort of the other stuff that we found in here. A lot of plastic films, some rigid plastics, the carpet padding, of course, tack strips. And then some other flooring types that we ended up here, a lot of baseboards, cardboard, and some other stuff. We're finding, in some cases, leftovers from people's lunch break and anything like that. That's far and few between, but some tools and that sort of stuff as well. And then we'll get into a little bit about this sorting methodology we employed when we got out there. So first of all, we worked with the PCC recyclers to get them to accumulate a certain amount of this residue material before we came out there. Generally, we were able to get a week's worth of residue stored up at their sites. And having a good accumulation of this residue allows us to get through a lot of material. We're typically able to sort through it quicker than it accumulates, so able to just kind of broaden out that sample size a little. Next slide. From there, after it's been accumulated, we show up. We are kind of tour of the California PCC recycler locations. We went out and for a couple days we sorted through everything that they'd stored up for us. For our larger, heavier stuff, we were able to load it up onto pallets and weigh it out with a forklift on a scale. For all the smaller stuff, which is certainly more numerous by count, you have to get in there with your hands and load it up into barrels before weighing it up. So it was quite the process. It was a little dirty, but it was a really fun time. From there, we start to determine the composition of the PCC residues. In total, we sorted over 40,000 pounds of material from our efforts. So we were very satisfied with that. This weight data we collected was able to get brought over, and we calculated these compositions, and we're able to weight each of these individual facility compositions appropriately based on their annual generation, and aggregated that into a single aggregate statewide residue data set. And the resulting data set, we have a couple charts here. This first one is our residue composition by material group. We have a few material groups here. Our first of all is our non-carpet materials. So like I mentioned, that's the everything else in that final basket that we see that isn't carpet. Next, you see the carpet scraps, our non-recoverable fibers. This is just our natural fibers we mentioned earlier, our wool and our jute. And then our three slices on that left one, our orange, our yellow, and our green, is our residential PCC, commercial carpet tiles, and our commercial broadloom. These are those targeted PCC categories that are generally very desirable for the recyclers. We took these three slices and blew them up and take those over to our pie chart on the left to understand of these generally desirable PCC categories, what is the basis for disposal on that? Our findings were that generally it's, this unacceptable backing is the largest single reason that this PCC is getting disposed at 43%. Excessive adhesive was along with soaked and soiled were, kind of the follow-up constituents. This mixed fiber is something we found to be very challenging to identify while we're out there. If you're using a resin scanner, and we were able to use a resin scanner for much of our work, you might be scanning a roll of PCC maybe 12 times, and you might get polypropylene 10 or 11 of those times, and maybe only on the 11th try or the 12th try will you get like a PET reading to indicate to you that there's more than one resin type in that that backing. So that can be very challenging in our experience, just because of the sheer volume of material that these recyclers are processing. It's difficult for them to be scanning any single roll more than 3 times. So this mixed fiber identification is certainly a challenge. And we didn't have the opportunity to, reliably scan every single roll, a dozen plus times. So that remains a challenge, I would say. For the remaining 22%, we weren't able to be sure. Now, we were able generally to be able to work with the recycler staff and get their feedback on why something might have been initially discarded from processing. We found that was really helpful to actually get their feedback. And in every case, we were able to speak with them beforehand about how they actually go about accepting or rejecting this PCC as it's coming in. Of course, this ultimately comes down to being a determination we need to make based off the likely determination of the recycler staff. So we weren't able to make a determination 100% of the time. And we can go to the next slide. Finally, after aggregating everything, this is our tabular summary of the results. Off on this left-hand side is our PCC material with the weighted composition there. On the right-hand side, these are our non-recoverable carpets and non-carpet materials.
Overall, Carl, just real quick, I just wanted to jump in and say PCC stands for post-consumer carpet, which most of you probably know, but yeah.
Thank you, Jared. In total, about a fifth of the this residue material is targeted PCC that is has some kind of disqualifying feature to it, according to the recyclers. And then 41% is just not even carpet in the first place, which is quite interesting. I think that brings us, we've got a slide about talking about the limitations up next. No study is totally flawless, and we do want to kind of point this sort of stuff out. We weren't able to observe the residue accumulation. This was something that was conducted by the recyclers. We also don't have perfect knowledge of why these materials are discarded. This kind of leads a little bit into that, talking about that 20% of undetermined discarded PCC. And this is a snapshot in time sort of study, meaning we weren't able to collect a number of representative samples from an extended period of time. We were only able to do a week's worth of material from the recyclers generally, we were able to get 2 weeks from another one, but there's a number of challenges that go into that. First of all, just the amount of time and staff you need to work through all that material, the amount of storage space you need to conduct that generation. And as this is the inaugural study that CARE has conducted on these residues, we are hoping that this data is going to be able to springboard them into additional research down the line. And this is only material that's initially screened out on the front end. Of course, during the processing of this carpet material, there are stages during the process where discards might be added to, and then ultimately, after the processing, when it's getting shipped out, we can't say for sure how all that material gets used. So we're really only looking at kind of that front amount of discarded material. And I think that's everything there. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything that they want to ask at this point.
Hi, Carl. This is Lisa Meckes, and I do have a question. Do you know in this report what the percent of discarded material is in relationship to the amount that was collected?
So we were not focusing on inbound material at the same time as we were looking at the residues. This is exclusively to the residues. I'm sure CARE does have that sort of data. Our focus was explicitly on the composition, not necessarily the rate of residue discards at this time.
Got it. Thank you. And then I did want to make a comment to our drop-off sites that we do allow, we do accept all broadloom carpet and all padding, knowing that some of them are not recyclable, and we do that for your convenience. And then we also clarify that we don't want wet carpet and tack strips or other debris in the container. But I just didn't want folks to get confused about should we be, not putting particular kinds of broadloom into the container. And yes, you are welcome to put all broadloom that is dry or not extremely dirty into the container. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And thank you, Carl, for all your work. Really interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for that point. That's a good one you raise about the material.
Anyone else have any questions for Carl?
Jared, I would, hi, this is Abby with the Carpet Stewardship Program, and I worked with Carl on this project. So thank you, Carl, for presenting, because I think it's important information for the drop-off sites. I just wanted to say about Lisa's point, in terms of looking at the material within the whole scope of what is collected and recycled, we actually are working on those calculations, and we expect to have a report to post on the website. It will probably be maybe within the next month, and we'll announce that in the e-news, the CARE e-news.
Anyone else have any questions for Carl? All right. Well, if you think of one, please feel free. Thank you so much, Carl. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Jared. Thank you so much.
And I'll say that, we understand that it's a waste stream, essentially. We don't expect things to come in perfectly, but we nonetheless want to, identify what those problem materials are. And if stuff is getting thrown away from what is collected, of course, we want to figure out what that is, so we can figure out how to address it. So I will move on. This is just a few reminders. I know it looks like kind of a lot going on this slide perhaps, but this is about AB 901 reporting. This information only applies to facilities that are required to report quarterly to CalRecycle through the Recycle and Disposal Reporting System, or the RDRS, which I'm sure many of you know all too well. In general, sites located at carpet retail stores are exempt from this type of reporting, so you can just ignore that. But if you are a solid waste facility or a recycling facility and you are not sure if you're required to report, we encourage you to visit CalRecycle's website. You can see the link there in the number 4 bullet point. And if you are required to report, please make sure to list carpet outflows. Excuse me, please make sure to list that carpet outflows were sent to CARES RD number 12614. You can reach out to Cheryl, which I think every single one of you are probably familiar with Cheryl. She does the service email, the service@carpetrecovery.org email address, and she can help you with that. I am not all too familiar with this, but I do have the RD number 12614. So please make sure that you have that down. And then another reminder is just we have our Care Public drop-off site map. We do that in print form and digital on our website. And I just wanted to encourage everyone to go on there, find your facility, and make sure that the information included there is accurate. We collect some of this in your quarterly reports, but it's important that your listed information be accurate to avoid any confusion, and so that folks don't get confused, at the scale house. It'll help you and your staff save time, perhaps even in getting calls to clarify, like, is this the right rate? Are these the right hours? Things like that. But specifically, we know that rates change every so often, so please verify your site's information, specifically looking at that, the tip fee for carpet. And of course, if there are any changes, just let us know. You can send any one of us an email and we'll be sure to get the change on the website. I know that we do ask for this in the quarterly reports, at least to some extent. And to those of you that have submitted those quarterly reports on time, thank you so much. And another somewhat related reminder, we do create customized installer sheets for drop-off sites to keep in their lobbies or their scale houses. These are bilingual and they have similar information as what's listed on the map, but they also remind folks of how to properly prepare and keep the carpet free of debris. And then before we get into the feedback and best practices, I just wanted to go over the California service page, which I know you're all familiar with in terms of submitting service requests or the pre-delivery reports. But there are a lot of helpful links on there. And I know I have gone over this before, but we have a lot of new drop-off sites now, so I'm hoping it is helpful to some of you. But the service page at carpetrecovery.org/California/CA-service. I encourage you all to bookmark that if you haven't already. And some of the helpful links here, there's a frequently asked questions, which just kind of goes over how to prepare the carpet, how to submit a service request, things like that. There's the swap out order form, which of course you all know, and I do not have to go over at length here. There's the pre-delivery report for self-haul sites, and all of these are, the green highlights are links you can click and it'll bring you to the right place. The quarterly report form, which I imagine you're all quite familiar with, especially lately. So again, thank you all for submitting your reports on time. And we have the recordings of the biannual webinar. So if any of your staff were not able to attend and you just need to listen, you go click that link and you'll find it. The onboarding video. And this is actually really specifically what I wanted to highlight. So we have the CARE onboarding video. It's on YouTube. You can, of course, always reach out to me or Lisa or anyone at CARE to schedule an onboarding webinar. And it's like a 30-minute webinar. Just, most of you have gone through that. Goes over the basics of the program, how to order a swap out or do a pre-delivery report, depending on your hauling situation. But we do know schedules are tight. And often, there's sometimes staff turnaround or whatever it is. So it's a great resource that you can view at any time. Again, that link is at the service page. And it's a 9-minute video. It really just goes over much of the same information that we would go over on that onboarding webinar. But we want to make sure you all know that that's there and available for you. And again, the general link is right there, which again, I think most of you probably have bookmarked, but if you don't, I would encourage you to do so. And then I did have a quick reminder on the micro grants. We talk about this typically on each of these calls. $15,000 is available per year for each entity or whatever site, whatever drop-off site would like to apply. They must be located in California, which obviously all of you are. And essentially, if you can prove through the application, which is a quite simple application, that you would have a net increase in carpet collection, that's essentially what we're looking for. And applications are accepted throughout the year until funds are exhausted, and they are still open. And you can find the application at carpetrecovery.org/CA-grants. You heard Abby speak a few moments ago. She is the grants manager. She's always available to discuss anything grant related, but you can also reach out to just anyone from CARE and we'll put you in touch with Abby. And before I get into kind of the end part here, does anyone have any questions about anything we've gone over? Okay. I will move on. So we have the feedback and best practices next, but I just wanted to share a few acknowledgements. These are the top 5 sites in both the urban and rural counties. We always like to take a moment to acknowledge the work you all do, but specifically, these are the top 5 collectors in each of the those classifications of counties, the urban and the rural. So in the urban counties, we actually have a top collector as a retailer for the first time, California Cushion, and then Bena Sanitary Landfill, Contra Costa Waste Services, Central Force Supply, which is another retailer, and Floor and Perkins. So thank you all. And then in the rural sites, we have Pro Floors, Rock Creek Landfill, Devlin Road Transfer Station, Hawthorne Street Transfer Station, and East Lake Sanitary Landfill. So big round of applause to all of you. Thank you so much. And as we usually do, we like to talk about what's working and what's not working. Does anyone have anything specifically that may be any new operations or anything that is specifically working well for your facility lately? I know it's kind of a broad question. Sometimes it's hard to think of what's working well when it's kind of a day-to-day thing, but please feel free to unmute yourself and let us know. I suppose no news is good news. Does anyone have anything that's been especially challenging lately that they want to share? I know we have a little bit of a smaller crowd today because there's that RCRC meeting going on, but we also have a quiet crowd, which is okay. I see in the chat, can the grants be used for a new site? Yes, absolutely. As long as you're a CARE drop-off site, you're certainly open to applying for a micro grant. All right, I'll just leave it open for one more moment. Does anyone have anything specifically that is going well or not so well in the CARE program and the carpet collection world?
Jared?
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm for the grants questions, I will drop my email into the chat as well. So if anybody wants to just contact me offline, I'm happy to work with you on any of the grant questions.
Great. Thank you, Abby.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll leave it open for questions before we close. Does anyone have any last minute questions they'd like to ask? Of course, you can reach out to us at any time, but anything you want to add before we break? Okay. Well, I know you're all extremely busy with a lot more than just carpet. I know it's just a, a small part of what you do, but sincerely, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. And we'll reach out to you between now and the next webinar. Certainly, we'll be connecting, and we'll be seeing the service requests come through. But we really appreciate you being here and being part of the program. So thanks for joining, and we will see you at the next biannual webinar. Thanks, everyone. Take care.